Welcome back, it's Barb, and today we're shooting in the beautiful outdoor natural light with children. We're going to talk about a few things. The first thing we're going to talk about is finding the light. Second thing we're going to talk about is selecting your perfect location for your shoot, and we're going to talk about wardrobe and propping. As far as light goes, it's really beautiful to shoot in sunny, late afternoon light where there's a lot of directional light. It's fantastic and it's beautiful. And you want to find the light coming behind your subject with a bit of fill in the front. It's spectacular. However, today we don't have that light, so we're going to use this beautiful blanket of soft light, and you have a lot of things in your favor. You have very flattering light, which is very soft. You won't have any harsh shadows, and you can shoot in any direction that you want. So it's a little easier for finding your location. So let's talk about a few things. Let's talk about aperture. I know I keep talking about aperture, but it's really, really important, particularly in portrait photography. So here we go. Here's the apertures. So we're talking always about shooting close to wide open if possible. That's what it looks like. Nice, wide open aperture. And why again? Because we want the subject in focus and the background not to conflict with what you're seeing. The eye will see what's in focus, and so soft background is a great portrait. So you don't want to be down there, up here. ISO, again, it's your judgment. You're going to look at the day and you're going to ask yourself, you know, how sensitive do I want my camera, my sensor to be? Today, this kind of day, I'm going to start at 400 and we'll take a look and see how that looks. Then lens, we keep talking also about a 50mm lens, which will get you through everything. You could have that one lens, no other lens. If it's a 1.4, that's great. A 1.2, even better. So let's talk about harsh light. It definitely can happen, particularly if you shoot at the wrong time of day. But if you shoot towards the end of the day, you'll still have strong light, strong directional light. And you want to pay a lot of attention to that. So I always look for where is the light coming from. Let's say it's coming from here. You want to put your subject so that the light is behind the subject. I know that maybe you've heard always not to shoot into the sun, but you're not literally shooting into the sun. You're using the sun as your light coming from behind. It's very beautiful, and that's how you see all those beautiful pictures with the hair light. You do need some sort of fill. So we talked about a foam core, white foam core, or getting a reflector and just bounce some light back into the face to fill the shadows. Beautiful. Problems with harsh light or would be shooting too early in the day or shooting in the open where you have no shade, nothing for the sun to filter through. You can shoot at earlier times of day, but what you would want is for the sun to come through a tree and maybe put your subject closer to the tree, and then it's beautiful light and you can do it and it works. So just keep that in mind. You're going to look at the face always to see what's happening on the face. Theoretically, you don't want any kind of sharp shadows on the face at all. So it's just a matter of paying attention to that, moving your subject so that you don't see and into the shade. So a big tree would create shade, or like an overhang of a building. All those things create shade, and you can shoot in those any time of day. Keep in mind that in the morning, if you're going to shoot in the morning, you need to shoot very close to sunrise. You only have about an hour of time to shoot soft light. It gets harsher and harsher as the day increases. I choose not to shoot that much in the morning because I don't want to be working against the time, like it's going to get harsher and harsher. I prefer to work in the afternoon when you have maybe the last hour, hour and a half of light, and the light is just getting softer, 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 more beautiful and more beautiful. Put everything in your favor. I choose to shoot that way. Occasionally I shoot in the morning. In the morning you could get some interesting things such as fog, which is beautiful. It's very, very atmospheric. Or you could get an animal just hopping along or something unusual. So it is fun to sometimes shoot in the morning as well. Has a different mood. So let's look at some photos. In this photo here, we have a subject that is not quite maybe in the third quadrant, but you have the swing, which helps those two subjects into that third. And then you have a beautiful background with flowers, and you have a beautiful barn, and you have a moment. It's nice to try to get a moment. This child is looking at a doll, and she's in her own personal world, and it's about childhood. And even though it's the back of the child, you can make a nice strong statement. Another child sort of lost in her world, and she's in some bright colored clothing, which is fun. She has in her hand a beautiful bouquet of flowers that she picked, and she's blowing this oversized dandelion and just in her own little world. And the background selection, this is a bit of a forest area where the sun is coming from behind. And as you can see, the background is nicely out of focus. She's perfectly in focus. And so the background is not distracting. You go right to the girl. So in this photograph, it has a very different atmospheric look than the previous photograph. This is much later in the day, and I'm shooting straight into the sun. I'm being careful that the sun doesn't come too much into my lens, so you just need to get a right angle, like point the camera just down a little bit. And again, this is a very wide open, probably 1.2 or 1.4, and I'm playing around with the girl with her big flower. You're just waiting for the right moment, but note the beautiful light on her hair, and also note the leading line in the background. Let's talk about a painter or an artist that makes decisions within a frame, just like we do in our camera. We have 4 lines, so does a painter on a canvas, for instance. They're making all of these decisions, and they're making strong composition. We can do the same thing within our confines, which is also a frame. So when you're framing up, look for great leading lines, look for less distracting elements in the background, and make good choices. Do not rely on changing it later in Photoshop, which could take you hours. There's no reason for it. If there's something distracting, if you move to the right or you move to the left, you can get rid of it. It's very easy, but you want to be thinking, I'm going to get this as close to perfect as possible in the frame. We have a huge world to choose from, so there's many different angles and there's many opportunities. If you set up somewhere and it's not working, just move, because we have the whole world to choose from. And in this world, I guarantee you can find a great image. Let's scout and look around for different places where we could make a strong composition. All right, so I'm looking around this beautiful park, and it's overcast again, so we can shoot in all directions. So the first little spot that I found is this little tree here. So the tree is nice because you could put a child underneath the tree, so we have a little like sort of arch. And if I drop down very low, which I would want to do, the reason why I want to do that is because I want to get the green in the foreground and avoid some of the dirt. So I'm probably end up on my stomach for this shot. But right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on the tree because I don't have a subject, and it's quite pretty. One thing that you always want to be aware of is any kind of horizontal line that's going to run through the body of a child. So in this case, I would get even lower once the child's in place and maybe bring the child here, and then everything thrown out of focus in the background. So this would be a nice spot to shoot. The next spot that caught my eye are these beautiful vertical trees here, and I think they look really cool. So you could position a child on those rocks and potentially shoot with this tree sort of coming into the top of your frame. So that would be a nice leading line. So I'm just going to focus on these rocks right now and get an idea of where I want to be, probably right about here. And it's quite nice looking. So that would be a good possibility, and kids like to jump around on rocks. And then the next interesting area that I see here are this little group of vertical trees here. So I might put a child far away from the background, maybe approximately here, doing something, and maybe with a little pop of color, because we're pretty monochromatic with the greens back there. And I would go vertical for this and shoot in the front and get those really cool trees in the back. So I like that. So I would try that. You're always looking for sort of arching trees. It makes a nice composition. And so potentially shooting through here. The one thing that I don't like is I don't like a lot of the dirt that's on the ground. It's nicer to have a child sitting in grass. There's a lot of nice grass in the back, so I'm always looking for kind of a perfect scenario. This grass here is really nice. Potentially a child could be sitting there, and you could shoot a little higher and try to get just the grass and this arching tree here. Okay, so this area here, you would not want to shoot this way because you're going to get all that in the background. So that's not working. So I'm looking at some great potential here for lots of different shots. But it's really important when you're picking a park or a public place to shoot that you really pay attention to how much detail that might be distracting is in your background. In this case, in this park, there are a lot of distracting elements. You just have to really look and really search and find perfect areas where you can shoot without distracting elements. If you don't have a particularly sensational backdrop or composition going for yourselves, you can always augment it and put a little pop of color. It's a simple prop, such as an umbrella, for instance, on an overcast day would be particularly nice because everything is one tone, all green. So that's fun, and it's also fun for the child to have a little fun, and you could get some great moments. Other props that you could have would be perhaps these little crowns. A simple little crown says a lot about childhood, and it could really pop in a background like this. And also, fun things for kids. Kids love wands, and wands are very easy to make. I have a tutorial on how to make these little wands. So that's a fun thing for kids. And it keeps them a little distracted from the fact that they're being photographed, that they're just gonna have some fun. Another simple thing to make is out of paper bags, just paper crowns with a little bit of twine and some little sticks, and this is very where the wild things are, woodsy, very classic for a child to have. Also is really nice are these little paper boats, and you can just look up how to make them with a little bit heavier and bright colored paper, and it's really nice photograph for a child to be just sending one of these down, a little bit of water, and it's a very classic moment that a child will be interested in, and you can get a really nice photograph. And don't forget bubbles. Bubbles are a great prop to bring along. It's fun for kids, and it makes for really great photographs. Lastly, very easily, you can just get a simple piece of fabric, and you don't even have to sew it, just cut it, tie it around the child's neck, and let them run around as superheroes. So it's fantastic. This is for girl superheroes, which I love. And we have a nice red one for boys, or you could do blue. Lastly, a simple thing such as a butterfly net is really wonderful for kids because they can really get into their own world. Now, you're taking a photograph of a child, but it's not so set up. They're actually really having fun, so you can just capture that. Once you pick your background and you have your composition, just give them a simple prop, and then they're having fun. So these are all great things to use to make your composition stronger and to get great expressions from your children. Let's talk about wardrobe. Wardrobe can make or break your composition and your photograph. We already talked about how to find locations and great composition. So once you have that, it's really great to add some color. Punches of color are very contemporary right now, so you want to kind of do that, maybe incongruent things still. Cowboy boots with a cute little skirt and some fun color in the hair, that's great. For boys, they like to have maybe a graphic tee with jeans, maybe barefoot, maybe big clunky boots with some cool socks, maybe a hat, something fun like that, showing kids are as kids, but you are controlling the wardrobe. One thing to keep away from, maybe some stripes, might be too much, and also superheroes that are copywritten, not such a great idea. However, a graphic tee is a lot of fun because that's what kids wear, really fun. Rain boots and umbrellas, if it's raining, you can still shoot in the rain. It's really beautiful, actually. So, rain, you know, having kids jumping in puddles, great shot. Kids being kids again. Always think about what kids like to do. When it's sunny, you could do swimsuits. You could have kids spraying each other with hoses, eating popsicles, flip-flops, just fun stuff. You know, sunglasses, goggles, all of that stuff is a lot of fun. One thing you want to avoid on the feet is white sneakers or even black sneakers. In general, I don't really like to shoot sneakers unless they're Converse. Converse are very cool. They're all different colors, and that looks great. So let's look at some images. The beautiful thing about this first shot is the gorgeous leading line of the fence and the absolutely stunning green tones, very soft light. The most fantastic thing about this shot is the kids. These kids were fantastic. They're just very natural, having fun. And I'm also giving them something to do that is fun. So that's very important. You don't want to push a kid too far in doing something that really isn't fun. So bubbles are always fun for kids. I picked a few flowers and put a couple ribbons on. I thought it would be nice if one hand was controlled, so she was just trying to touch bubbles with one hand, and so that's a little bit more control for you. And also, I really like the outfits, the clothing. It looks playful, it looks natural, like what kids might wear on an afternoon. And also, I love the butterfly net in his back pocket. Just shows that is a little bit of an adventure. Tells the story a little bit more. And I purposely pulled out his necklace, which he had underneath, and I was like, that's like that age of 9, 10-year-old boys love those necklaces. The other wonderful thing about this shot is the gesture. So we're going to take a whole bunch of shots like this, and they're not all going to be beautiful, but you're going to find a few that really tell the story and have beautiful gesture and good faces, good expression. So you're looking for all of that. So you just shoot, concentrating on everything that you know to concentrate on. And when you're doing your post-processing, you will find those beautiful gems. In this case, I really love how her little arm is bent and she's just about touching a bubble. And I love that. And he is fantastic because he's completely engaged in what he's doing. So together, those two gestures and them being very authentic in this photograph really makes it a great photo. It's nice to change things up a bit. You know, you're gonna shoot that, and then, you know, you'll know when you have it. Change things up a little bit. I wanted her to hug him from the back, and he was just kept blowing the bubbles. And these two were very close. They were very connected. They loved each other clearly, and I thought that was really special. And in this shot, it really shows their relationship. She's so sweet on her brother. So we had another scenario that was really fun, which was these paper boats. And I actually visited this location before I did the shoot to see where I could shoot and what looked good. I love the leading line of this little river, and I thought it would be fantastic for the kids to have little boats. So we just got them as close to the edge as I could, and they just dropped in their boats. We did it several times. Again, looking for that moment when the gesture's right, the expression's right. Once you have your composition, you can just keep shooting. And this was one that I really liked because she looks very engaged in what he's doing, and he's just at the moment that he's putting his boat in. In the next one, it's nice because he stood up and he's just kind of smiling and having a good time, and she's very engaged in putting her boat in. The problem here, if I could mention, is he's standing up, and because he's a little bit tall, if you look in the background, you can see that there's an area that's darker, and that was a path and then some dark trees behind it, and I didn't want that in the photograph. But in this case, I needed headroom, so I couldn't come down anymore. This case, you would use Photoshop to fix that background. You can lighten it, you can get rid of it in a million different ways. But in that case, I would say it's okay because you just couldn't do anything else, and it's not a major reconstruction on your photograph. In this next shot, I also really liked it because the leading line is really telling the story of where these kids are. They look very isolated in their own little world, and they're both looking at their boats as they're going down this little river. The next shot, I asked the boy to put on this paper head wreath that I made. Boys love this stuff, so I had him go stand on a rock, and I have the little wands with the stars on them, more boyish. And I had my assistant hold onto the cape, and on a 1, 2, 3, he just tosses it up, so as it comes down, it's natural. And we just did that maybe 10 times. I looked through them all, they were all pretty great, but this was my favorite because I like his face and I like his gesture. He's very stiff and onward, and I just think it's great with the background and the cape flying. In this case, it was really interesting because I love this tree. It had 2 cut off parts on the bottom where he could stand, and I saw it early on my location scout. I loved it. I wanted to do something there. I asked him what he could do, And this was interesting because young kids have a lot of ideas. And so he said that he could stand there and he could look for the bad guys who were in the fortress. And that's what he did. He just stood there, he leaned around, his feet are in great position, he's holding the wand well, and he looks really engaged. So this is a story that you can tell of childhood. A childhood moment. It speaks volumes about what kids like to do and adventure. So I just really loved this shot. And then I asked him if he would take his shirt off, if he would be okay with that. And he said yes, and he knew he was going to get a little extra treat for this. And I just really wanted his face. I definitely was in love with this boy's face. He's so expressive and beautiful. So I just put him in this little grove of trees that were to the left of the big tree. It just looked really isolated. And note the depth of field. I believe I was at 1.2 for this, so the background is all thrown out. Super focus on his eyes and his freckles and his little teeth, and just a beautiful shot, beautiful portrait. And he chose those two trees to look through, so I just went with it. And I particularly really love this shot with him looking off camera because it's more storytelling than someone looking straight into the camera. So I really love this. And then for the little girl, I just said that we were going to go off to a location, and she was in front of me. And so it's really important if a little girl or a child is running off in front of you, that you are ready with your camera. Because if you're not, that's when they're going to do something adorable and cute. Make sure everyone stays behind you, parents, everyone. If this child is going to run off, you just want to get something. And so that's how I got this shot, just a little detail from the back of her just running along. So it was really sweet. I picked an area where there was a beautiful tree in the background and nothing distracting in the background, 2 other trees, and everything looks very isolated, and just put her in and asked her to dance around with her little pink dress, her headdress, and the wand, and just let her just keep dancing. Half of those shots, 2/3 of those shots aren't going to be any good at all, but you'll get a few that look fantastic, and you just keep shooting until you really think you have it. And my little thing is, and then shoot just a little bit more. That's what I always say when someone says, how many images you take? I say, I shoot it till I get it, and then I just shoot a pinch more. And just remembering close-ups. During any shoot, always try to get close-ups, and there'll be so many moments for close-ups. So just be prepared for that, remembering to focus on the eyes. And we had one other little scenario with this little watering can, which was adorable. Just found a location where there was a flower and just put her in position. And you'll notice how beautiful the background is. It's just very soft. Nothing's competing at all. There's one small little signage here for the plants, which I would probably crop it just out. And it's a beautiful moment. She's just engaged, and it's also a moment of what children like to do. And that's, I think, why kids are so excited. I mean, she wanted to use this watering can for a half an hour before she could use it. And so she was really excited. So these kids had a lot of fun. They got some candy and they got a little prize, and they were very happy. It's really important to work with your kids, keep them happy, have them doing fun things, and that way you'll get the best shots. So for homework, I would like you to do an outdoor portrait. I would like you to find a really good location, a very nice leading lines, or really good composition, and maybe throw in a prop just to show childhood. You know, what is the essence of childhood? It would be great. And post that. I want to see your best shot. Next up is we're going to shoot outdoors again, but with running children, and that's going to be a blast.